Late Night Happy Hour is back on a Friday. Late Night Happy Hour. Dave Cokin is here. We'll do what we usually do on Fridays. Lots of picks. We'll go through college football. Sort of a trimmed down slate. We'll get into the reasons for that one. The Pac-12, tough time every week trying to get football games on, but we know the SEC's been slammed. We'll get to the NFL as well. But, Dave, you know what I'll actually start out with? The Masters. I don't know what you had coming in, but how has it gone so far for you?
Well, I don't have any results yet because I played 6 matchups and none of them are decided yet. I'm ahead in 3 and I'm down in 3. I'll know more after the second round is completed tomorrow morning. It's good. It's a good watch. I mean, big names are in there. There's a few guys that are new to the major leaderboard. That's exciting to watch. It looks like it's going to be a fun 2 days.
Do you go back and start betting some of the, I'll call them dogs, but, any of the golfers in like the 600, 500, 400 range to try to get a little value since 9 is the lead?
No, I have been doing outrights for a long time, and, they're just such crapshoots. And I think 9 or 10 tournaments back, I decided I'm just going to go with matchups. And I've been doing that and been doing very well. So that's all I do. I play full tournament matchups, usually on Wednesday, and then I see what happens. And so far, so good. Hopefully, I'll have a couple that go my way this weekend. I'm in real good position with Justin Rose against Jordan Spieth. I've been going against Spieth every week, and I have yet to lose one of those matchups. So we'll see if that streak continues here.
Why is that? Why are you going against Spieth?
Because he's not that good anymore. He's got a big name.
Yeah,
he's just he's I don't know, bottom of the top 50. That's where he is now. And
right.
it's not just a short-term thing. This has been going on for a good 2 years now. So that's basically what he's become. He might get it back together again someday, but as of now, he's not one of the elite players on the tour.
So Robert's in. Robert was in Vegas. Now he's in Texas. Brady's with the update that Rose is up on Spieth by 7. Should be good. Don't jinx.
Yeah, you never know. Right. Because if Spieth makes the cut, you can make that up in one day. And right now, Spieth is on the cut line.
So before we get to the college slate, we actually have a couple of athlete, celebrity passings this week that I wanted to get to, but I'll just throw out one right now. What's your recollection of first Paul Hornung, if I can say the name, Paul Hornung, as a player?
Not a lot of recollections of him as a player because I was just a kid, right. But I actually met him a few times. One was, I think, something gambling related where he might have been doing something with Proline. The other was through Lee Pete. They were friends.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they were friends. And Paul Hornung had the largest head I've ever seen on a man.
Yeah,
it was enormous.
He was
like a big watermelon on top of his neck. It's just, but a very nice guy.
A much bigger guy than you'd expect, right?
Yeah,
for a running back.
He was a big dude.
Yeah.
Back then he grew up in one platoon, so he played both ways.
Right. He also kicked, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yep. Well,
great athlete, obviously.
The other thing that's interesting about Hornung, and it's because it's the first thing I thought of because I was like, I bet you they're not going to talk about this for a couple of days. Paul Hornung and Alex Karras were actually banned from the league. Yeah, 19 was it for the 1960? When was it? 1963. Yep. Both guys were betting on games. Hornung said he was betting with his friends for $100 or $200, but Pete Rozelle said, no. You're betting like $500 on NFL games between. And by the way, it looks like it went on for at least 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, and $500 back then was a pretty good sized bet.
Yep.
It's still a decent sized bet, but $500 back then was a really big bet. Karras, I think Karras was more contrite about it, but he also was into it, no question about that.
Yeah, I was looking at 1960 to 2020. $500 now is about $4,400. That's pretty good.
It's a good sized bet.
Yeah,
but I think he could afford it.
Looking back, are you surprised? I mean, probably because it wasn't really in a massive media age, and the NFL hadn't quite broken through. I mean, I know obviously there's legendary championship games of the 50s that helped it start to emerge on TV. But are you surprised that they only got they got suspended, but it was a indefinite suspension, and it wasn't like they were out of the game. They eventually came back.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. They broke the rule, but it wasn't looked upon as being, the ultimate sin, and they were welcomed back. And let's call it straight. They weren't the only guys doing it.
No, because I'm actually reading an old story. 5 other guys on the Lions. That was Alex Karras' team. Joe Schmidt, Wayne Walker, John Gordy, Gary Lowe, Sam Williams. They were fined $2,000 apiece. So I guess I will have to do the quick math on that one. That's a lot of money.
That was a lot of money because they weren't making a lot.
Like $15,000-$16,000 by our time.
Right. They weren't making that much more than that.
Yeah. They each bet $50 on the Packers in the 62 championship game. Packers covered the 6-point spread. They had beaten the Giants 16-7. So
those filthy criminals.
They were suspended for 1 year. That's interesting. I just I knew that they were both suspended. I didn't realize the suspension was so short.
Well, they handled it a little better than and look, they admitted to it too.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. I mean, if you get caught, probably best off to just admit it.
Yeah. All right, college football. So give me your take on what's going to happen the rest of the way with the Pac-12. Like, are you to the point where you're not even handicapping the games? I asked Brad Powers, who's a top-notch guy. I asked him on Thursday, I'm like, what are you doing with the Pac-12 games? And he just kind of chuckled. Like, I don't even know why you even put in the freaking time.
Well, I mean, I'm doing all the basic work. I'm making my numbers and looking at the statistical matchups and scheduling dynamics. But you have to wait to find out who's playing. So this has been a year where I'm putting out games later than I've ever put them out before. Give an example. Look at the Louisville-Virginia Tech game tomorrow. Louisville is going to announce who's unavailable about 2 hours before the game. Well, how are you supposed to?
Exactly.
So I just scratch games like that off.
Yep.
I mean, I think maybe Louisville's going to be shorthanded on defense, but who knows? It might turn out that they're not. And obviously that's going to impact what might take place in the game and what the betting line is going to be. So just got to be patient. And if it means eliminating a lot of games, then you just eliminate a lot of games.
Yeah, it's like we're back to the beginning of the season when there weren't as many games. And the fool's gold, and I get sucked in by this every once in a while, is when you have teams like Louisville announce at the end. I assume, is Louisville going to announce the players or just say, hey, there's 13 guys out?
They're going to announce who's unavailable.
Because the Boise one got me on Thursday. I'm like, what? 14 players?
Right.
Like, and then all of a sudden, the special teams for Boise turns into the greatest unit we've ever seen and just blows Colorado State off the field, even with their guys suspended.
Yeah, well, it turned out they weren't real significant players for the most part. Right. And most coaches are staying in character. Harsin has always been very reluctant to share information.
Oh, yeah.
So you just know going in that he's just not going to reveal anything. He's got some Belichick in him as far as that goes. Boise looked good last night, though, and Colorado State looked terrible. Oh, somebody mentioned that I gave out FIU tonight. Yeah, I did. I lost Florida International. If you want to trade records, though, I doubt you'd want to do that.
So it was the pussy with the egg, too. So
yeah. No, it was the wrong side. Convincing wrong side, in fact. I'll let you know when I get them all right.
Maybe the person or the bot. Maybe the person, the bot was just stating fact. That's all. Maybe it wasn't hateful. All right, let's start looking at some of the games. Florida's taking up now. The coach of Arkansas, he's got COVID. Hearing from people, hey, he's more of a figurehead head coach, not really an X's and O's, and involved in every nook and cranny. So, what do you think here, Florida? 17.5 against Arkansas.
Yeah, it's not a great spot for Florida. They just basically want to win the game at this point and wait for the big fish that are coming down the road. But that doesn't automatically mean that Arkansas can stay with them. And Florida's offense is so good that they're probably going to put a 40 spot up. So is Arkansas good enough to put 20 up themselves? I don't know if they are. But this is the tricky stuff with some of these games. Well, you saw one tonight with Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got its big game is next week at UCF. So this figured, well, it might be a spot where Cincinnati just takes care of business, gets the win, and moves on. That turned out to be obviously completely the opposite. Cincinnati tried to run up the score and succeeded in doing so, even running a fake punt late in the game, which went for a touchdown. So I guess you have to try and figure out the coach's mentality going in. The other side in Florida, of course, is their defense isn't very good. And maybe Arkansas can do enough to hang around in the game. I don't know. It's not a game I really felt good about either way.
West Virginia 3 against TCU.
Yeah, West Virginia should have won last week against Texas. I mean, they just gave it away. Terrible red zone possessions. One where they clearly, in my opinion, should have kicked a field goal. Didn't get anything out of it. Then the next time down, they were in a position where that another field goal would have given them the lead. Instead, they had to go for it again on fourth down and didn't get anything. So it was a game where West Virginia played really well, deserved to win the game based on performance, and didn't. I think they'll get healthier here against TCU. They're back at home. They're playing pretty good football, and looks like a matchup that they can. I don't think it's a blowout by any means, but I think they do enough to get the win here.
What do you think about what Ryan's saying here in general, that the favorites are doing really well during the weeknight games? Has that turned out to be true, or is it kind of a mix?
I don't know. I don't really track it because it's random from one year to the next.
What is going on?
It's kind of like somebody was posting on Twitter or Facebook, I can't remember which, that divisional home dogs, the NFL, are like 10-2 so far this year, which is really good. Right. But the next 12 could go 2-10. I'm not a trend guy, so I'm not dismissing them. Some people do really well with them, but they've never really worked for me, so I just kind of avoid them.
One of the big games of the weekend. I mean, beginning of the week, I like Boston College, but this has gotten ridiculous. Like, everyone's slamming Boston College. So now what do you do? Notre Dame's down to 11.5.
Yeah, everybody's slamming Boston College. One quick note, by the way, for Kay Spottelson, who says I'm 2 games over 500 in college this year. That's right. And then he says that's under 500 with juice. That's wrong, because 20-18 would still put you up 0.2 of a unit. So if you can't do math that simple, buy a fucking calculator, okay? Everybody is on Boston College, and that's scary. It's clearly a letdown spot for Notre Dame. But that's the problem, is that it's such an obvious letdown spot. I think it was built into the line to begin with, and has still gotten bet down. It's getting to the point where I think the value is actually on Notre Dame. I'm not going to play it because this is Boston College's. This is their game of the year. It always is. I mean, this is a Catholic school rivalry, but it's clearly a little brother versus big brother, and the game means way more to Boston College every year. To me, if you're gonna take BC here, I would probably do it first half, because I think if you're going to catch Notre Dame flat, it's going to be early, and you might get a quick score. And Boston College has had some good moments early in games, as we saw against Clemson. So, but I don't know over 60 minutes if they can stay with the Irish.
What do you make of Miami now?
They're good. I don't know how good. The consistency factor hasn't been there. Virginia Tech is even less consistent. Virginia Tech, I basically crossed Virginia Tech off my schedule 3 weeks ago. I forget which game it was, but I lost the game in might have been Wake Forest. And it's like, okay, I can't figure this team out. They had COVID issues to begin with. They've had tremendous inconsistency on the defense, and they're just not living up to billing. And some of it might be on Fuente. I think his stock has dropped a bit, to be honest with you. He was supposed to be the next sensational coach moving up from Memphis, and I don't know that it's going all that well. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. He's not. But honestly, I think they're missing their old defensive coordinator, who was, I'm blanking on it, Bud Foster, who retired after last season, and seems that there might be maybe some of that magic is going away from this team. I think Virginia Tech might get him tomorrow, but Uh, I I have no desire to play any game Virginia Tech's involved in right now.
Wisconsin and Michigan.
No, I'm not playing Michigan.
Do we know all the details on Wisconsin?
No, but Michigan's a mess, and there's two different teams that have gotten off to bad starts where things were great expectations. Michigan and Penn State, both in the same conference. Penn State, look, I'm going to throw out last week's game because I think they just had a massive hangover off the first two games. The loss they never should have had against Indiana, and then they get outrun by Ohio State. And I just don't think they were interested last week against Maryland, and it was a disaster. We'll find out more about them tomorrow against Nebraska. I think they ought to win the game tomorrow. And to me, -3 is cheap on the power ratings. Michigan has just looked really bad. They don't have any excuses in their games. They've been ugly, and I don't know what's going on there. And you just wonder. The buzz has always been, well, they'll never fire Harbaugh. He'd have to leave on his own. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's a very strong community of boosters, and if they're getting tired of Harbaugh, there might be a change at the end of this year. He might not get fired, but he might be
nudged,
asked to resign.
Right.
Could happen.
So what are you going to do in the game? I'm
not going to play Michigan, Wisconsin, because I don't know how much in sync Wisconsin's going to be. I can't put too much into their win against Illinois, which was just horrible in that game, and I don't know how sharp they're going to be. But if they are sharp, they're going to beat Michigan. They're better than Michigan anyway.
Yeah. Some other games.
The sound, it's like very dramatic, that music.
I don't know. I wish I was doing it. It's some pop-up on one of the pages I'm looking at. Are you buying Northwestern? They're a road favorite against Purdue. There's 3.
Yeah, to some extent. They're very well coached. But the downside is, Nebraska had 8 red zones last week. 8. And just couldn't do anything with it. Now, I don't know whether that was the Northwestern defense or complete inefficiency of the Nebraska offense. I watched it, and I thought it was more Nebraska than Northwestern. But still, that's a team that's going to have a lot of confidence. But the flip side of it is they gave up 8 red zones. You do that against Purdue, and Purdue's going to find a way to get you. And they might have more back tomorrow. I don't know. Nobody seems to know. But he's a game changer for Purdue. He's one of the best players in the country.
What do we do with my Scarlet Knights? A favorite in a Big Ten game, Rutgers is, for the first time since 2015. They were favored against Maryland. This is a Big Ten favorite. They haven't been favorites outside of the Big Ten very often either, but they were favored against Maryland slightly. They wound up losing 46-41. So they're playing Illinois, and they started 7, and I'm seeing 6s and a 5.5.
Yeah, this looks like it looks like it's a sharp square game because the public is definitely on the Rutgers side here, but the line is going the other way. So that might indicate some more educated money's on Illinois. The starting quarterback's still out for Illinois, but I don't know how much that means. Peters, he's not playing. But they are getting a bunch of people back tomorrow that have been absent with the virus protocols. So that should help them. Rutgers has been outgained in all 3 games. They obviously the win against Michigan State was very nice. They didn't play a bad game against Indiana. And last week they were, forget last week, they were up against Ohio State, so that really doesn't matter. I think it's a close game. To me, if getting more than 5, I would still probably side with the Illinois side. I think this could be a 1-possession game.
I agree. Rutgers' big limitation is at quarterback. They still have to play a very dink and dunk pass game, and basically they're picking between one quarterback who can run, the other can throw. The one who can throw can't move, so they're afraid until they have their offensive line fortified that the other dude, Sitkowski, is going to get broken in half. Like, he actually came in the game last week and he threw passes that the other kid, Vidral, can't throw. But if there's any sort of pass rush, Sitkowski's a freaking nightmare. His true freshman year, they broke him mentally. He threw 18 interceptions. So I still think that's kind of lingering. So we'll see. I know Illinois can't throw it. The back
No.
behind Peters can. He was 6 of 17 last week, but I agree with you. Until Rutgers shows it, I'm not laying freaking 5.5 or 6 points.
Yeah, one of the Illinois kids who's apparently back tomorrow is it's Isaiah something. I can't think of his name. He's probably the best offensive player on their roster, and he is apparently playing tomorrow.
Ryan Carl says Michigan State is the best game on the board. Michigan State is at home. They're a dog. I'm still not sure how good Indiana is, and I kind of worry here about Indiana in a little bit of a letdown spot emotionally. They've played a bunch of games that they're beating people they've never beaten before.
And Indiana's got Ohio State next week, so that's a potential. And they're not. See that? I always think that, and it's not always the case, but for teams that are used to lots of big games, they don't really have the letdowns before the next big game because it's just business as usual for them. But Indiana's in a spot that this is very unfamiliar territory for Indiana because they're playing a really arguably could be the biggest game in the country next week. I mean, if they were to, Indiana's playing great football. And that's the game next week against Ohio State. They're in the same division. That's ultimately to get to the Big Ten championship. And this is a dangerous spot for Indiana against a team that I know that they got the one nice win, but they're not real good. It's scheduling dynamics say you take Michigan State. I'm not doing it because I don't think Michigan State's any good. But if I had to play the game, I would take the Spartans here.
Do you have your numbers there? You have your book there? I'm curious by the power ratings what Ohio State and Indiana looks like. Because I'm kind of with you here. I'd love to see Indiana handle Michigan State pretty easily, and see what the number is next week with Ohio State and Indiana.
Let's
do the long math. Do it.
18 on a neutral field.
Do you believe that?
I think it could be worse.
I mean, Penn State, in the end, Penn State wound up hanging with Ohio State to a certain extent. It was a 12-point game at the end.
But Penn State, I know Penn State's 0-3, but they're better than Indiana.
Yeah,
they're still better than Indiana. And I know this will drive people wild, but if Penn State and Indiana were playing tomorrow, Penn State would still be the favorite, even though they're 0-3 and Indiana's undefeated. Penn State would still be the favorite in the game because power ratings, and sometimes we get it wrong, but most people who do good power ratings, you don't have dramatic adjustments from one game to the next. And sometimes it bites. A good example is the Florida International game tonight. I had the game closer on my power ratings, and my power ratings evidently aren't good on Florida International, and I'm going to have to make more of an adjustment on them. But you don't downgrade a team or upgrade a team spectacularly off one performance. The negative is that sometimes it'll get you stuck on a side that is not as good as you think they are, or is worse than you think they are. And I've had that happen a couple of times this year. Well, I've gotten some right too. But I did get that one wrong tonight. And got it wrong convincingly. That was the wrong side.
All right, what do we do with some of the limited Pac-12 action that we do get? USC 14.5 against Arizona. The game's still on, right? Game's still on? I'm afraid to talk about any Pac-12 game if it got slipped by us, but
yeah, I think that one's still on.
The numbers are actually surprising, Dave. I don't know if you've been following this, but I'll try to punch it up in a bit. The numbers are actually surprising with, you would assume, Arizona playing its first game. I mean, USC is going to have a big advantage over them. As it turned out, so far this year, ATS, the 0 game team against the 1 game team, actually hasn't done that bad.
No, they've done well. And I think part of that is they've got actual game film to work with, whereas the other team doesn't. The problem is, I don't know if Kevin Sumlin, does it matter if he's got game film to work with? I'm not a big Kevin Sumlin guy.
Why not?
I think he gets overmatched in game on a frequent basis. That goes back to his job. What was it, SMU? I just don't think he's that good. USC, I mean, they got so lucky last week. That actually might be good for them because the pressure's kind of off now. They got through the game. And if they come to play tomorrow, I don't know if Arizona can stay with them for 60 minutes. But USC wasn't real good last week. And we talked about that game, and And it turned out to be accurate.
Now we start going a little hardcore. Want to do a little Mountain West?
Sure.
Hey, let's stick with the Pac-12 for a second since we're on the Pac-12. What do you think of Rolovich at Washington State? I think some people were surprised by that one over Oregon State. Now they're playing Oregon. They're at home. They're getting 10.5.
Well, I've been on the record that's saying Rolovich is an upgrade from Leach, and he is. He did a great job at Hawaii, and Leach is overrated. And I think Rolovich is going to do well, but I don't know if he's got the personnel to stay with Oregon for 60 minutes. Bettors are on the Ducks. I can't disagree with them. It's gotten to the point where now I can't play it at that number, but we'll see what Washington State has. I'm not putting all that much into the Oregon State win last week because I think Oregon State's overrated, which is weird to say because they've been so bad for so long. Yeah. But for some reason, this team, they had a lot of close games last year, and they did show some improvement, but I thought they snuck up on some teams last year. I don't think they're as strong at quarterback, which was a big part of their success last year. And I have a feeling Oregon State might get some beatings this year. They're not very good. We'll see what happens tomorrow at Washington, but it's a game that I came real close to playing Washington.
Same sitch with the team with a game in hand. Team hasn't played yet. Washington got canceled last week. Huskies are 14 against, we were just talking about Oregon State. So what do you do with Washington?
I don't want to lay that much. Numbers going up. I think I probably should have jumped on this early, but I've been so reluctant to bet early because half these bets end up getting canceled. It's just irritating. I mean, I've had 3 games this week that I really liked that got canceled. I liked UAB, canceled. I liked Auburn, canceled. And I like anybody who plays Tennessee at this point. Anybody. This week was A&M. Oh. Tennessee is might be the most screwed up program in the country right now.
Like, why do you say that?
Well, there's stuff that's been going on that hasn't really gotten widespread print that it's a really negative situation. They asked staffers to take a pay cut about a month ago.
This is not good for the coaches, not good for the coaching staff. When I saw this, I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Go ahead, finish it up.
Well, they refused, obviously.
And it was like it was an athletics department wide request that, hey, everyone takes pay cuts. You're at a state university, and 5 of the coaches are like, nah, we're not. Nah, we'll pass.
So they're gone at the end of the year.
I was like, yeah, you better win. You better win, and they ain't winning.
Oh no, and I think they'd be gone anyway.
Yeah,
I think that if they'll be looking around. These guys are all connected. They can get other jobs, especially if you're at Tennessee. You'll be able to go someplace else. The question is whether Pruitt lasts or not. I suspect he might because Fulmer hired him, and athletic directors are really reluctant to basically say, well, I got that wrong. Jerry Jones is the classic example of that in Dallas. I mean, he kept a coach on there who just wasn't qualified to be a head coach, but if he fired him, it was going to make him look like an idiot.
Looks like an ass, and he's going to double down and do the same thing with Mike McCarthy.
Yep.
So enjoy it, Cowboys fans. The earliest you get out from under Mike McCarthy is probably 3 full seasons.
I would agree with that. Yep. So as far as Tennessee goes, that would have been my big play this week on A&M. I think A&M, not that A&M's on paper that much better than Tennessee, because Tennessee on paper is actually not a bad football team, but they're so screwed up right now that to me they're just an auto fade. Whatever the number is, I'm going to plunk it early, and I did that here, and and I got my money back.
Were you surprised by Colorado last week? Colorado was playing Stanford, and they're getting 9.
Yes and no. I don't like UCLA, and I'll talk about that game in a moment because UCLA is going to play on Sunday. UCLA was every bit as bad at linebacker as I thought they'd be, which is a real problem for their entire defense. And the quarterback he just can't stop turning the football over. He's got skills, but he's just a turnover machine. Colorado's, I don't think they're any good. Basically they have a guy who used to be a safety playing quarterback now. And we'll find out a little more this weekend, but they do at least come out of that game feeling great about themselves. And maybe that'll spur them on to a good performance. Sometimes you get a win in that first game under a new coach, and teams can take off for a while and get hot and play a little over their heads. And Colorado certainly should be feeling great about themselves after that win last week. As for USC and UCLA and Utah. They will play on Sunday.
UCLA and Cal, no?
I meant UCLA and Cal.
Yeah.
See, I got my virus teams mixed up. Cal's that line. The first number that got put up, I think, was Circa, and they put up a pick. That didn't last long. Cal's the better team, and they'll go off, I would say, 2.5 or 3 in the game. Don't know if I'll play it at that price, but and I couldn't really give it out because I knew nobody was going to get the number. I knew that number was going to go away as soon as it came out. So I don't know if it'll make my official card, but Cal should beat them. Better coached and, probably better talent too. California's pretty good. And I like the job the coach has done there.
He's a really good coach.
Yep.
We skipped over one Big Ten. We had mentioned Penn State. What do you want to do with Penn State, Nebraska? It's 3.5 Penn State on the road.
I laid 3 this afternoon. On my numbers, I got it 8. And again, maybe my numbers haven't caught up to how bad Penn State is, but I just don't think they're that bad. And I think they'll get through this game. I do expect McCaffrey at quarterback most of the way for Nebraska tomorrow, which is a good move by Frost. He's a better player than Gonzalez, who's been completely overhyped. McCaffrey, did that. Everybody with that last name is talented. But Nebraska's still got the same issues. They've had since Frost arrived, really, which is they compete really hard, but find ways to lose games basically all the time. They just don't know how to win. Maybe they get it done tomorrow. I know a lot of the bettors like them, but I think that's more a result of how bad Penn State was against Maryland last week, and the fact they're 0-3. If James Franklin loses this one, I think the pressure's really on him, and we could be looking at a coaching change.
What?
I think it's possible.
No, they'll chalk it up as just a bad year. They've had strife and emotion problems off the field. Now with their running back retiring, their backup running back, he got hurt.
I mean, they've had a lot of problems.
Dave, I think in the case of Tennessee, it's been disappointing. So this is a carryover from last year, and there are extenuating circumstances when 5 coaches say, "Hey, we're not going to take a pay cut during a pandemic." That sticks. But to me, Franklin's done way too much over the years. I think most programs, most ADs are going to look at a COVID year and go, everything was kind of fucked up. We can't kill her.
Yeah, and that might be the case at Penn State. I might be jumping the gun, but let's say if this continues, he will be on the hot seat going into next season. Agree on that?
I don't know, man. I think he's a really good coach. He's not great, in tight situations at times. I mean, I know this. If he got fired, I think he'd be scooped up by another power in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I think
he'd get another job in short order. I think he's a good coach too. I think he has a tendency not to be at his best in big games.
Yeah.
But overall, he's better than most.
Who am I missing? And maybe the chat room can jump in with Dave. Is there a Penn State person that would jump in a coach for Franklin? Because I think Matt Rule was going to be the guy, but the Panthers blew him away with a 7-year deal, so he ain't leaving the NFL unless Penn State's going to pay $15 million a year, which I don't think they're going to. I feel like I'm missing someone who's a Penn State alum who's coaching. I don't know.
Well, I know the guy that they should have hired. It's still Schiano. I always thought Schiano would have been a perfect fit.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. He would be. So let's hope that doesn't happen, Dave, please.
No, I think he's going to stay at Rutgers. I really do. I don't think he's going to take another job. I think he wants to build Rutgers into a decent program. If he didn't like it there, he wouldn't have gone back. Because it's not like Schiano was going to be unemployed. So I think he's going to stay with that job, and I suspect that'll be his last head coaching job. If it works out and Rutgers becomes respectable, he'll coach 10, 15 years there, and then go golfing for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he's got an 8-year, $32 million deal, so he's getting 4 a year, which is competitive. I mean, there's some of these schools that can pay 5+.
Well, and only a hope that he can make them a team that is a minor bowl. Not these.
That's a good point.
Everyone's expecting him to win Big Ten titles.
Everyone will be satisfied if he gets to 7-8 wins consistently, and he's making a bowl game just about every year. Penn State, you see what happens. Franklin can win 10 games, but if he can't beat Michigan, but especially Ohio State, and compete for national championships, then guys like you, Dave, are like he's on the hot seat.
Well, part of that is Franklin's fault, though, because he's one of these guys who consistently is out there saying, we don't want to be just a really good program. We want to be a great program that's competing for national championships. Well, they're not competing for national championships, so that rankles some people.
In the SEC, did you have anything interesting in the SEC? Obviously, the schedule's been whittled down. And by the way, before we turn to the NFL, if you're in the chat room, the comment room, if there's any games we missed, jump in. We'll see if Dave has something on it. But anything on Ole Miss and South Carolina? By the way, you want to talk about hot seat? I will back you. I'll back you on that one. That guy, I don't want to be too strong and call him a clown. I guess I just did. But Muschamp, okay.
I think he's gone.
Yep.
He was on the hot seat coming into this season, and it's not working out. And that was really bad last week. They got booed off their own field. Actually, South Carolina probably better off going on the road here because sometimes it turns into a home field disadvantage, especially in stadiums where they are letting people in to watch the games. And South Carolina is one of those teams. They had a lot of people there last week, and they just booed the crap out of the team. So probably better for them to get out of town. And I wonder if the opponent's going to take them very seriously at this point. But it's also, anytime you get into dead man walking territory, and I think Muschamp is probably at that point now, that's not a team I want to back.
What about Brady was asking earlier about Georgia State and App State. Sorry about that, Brady. But it's up now. App State 18.
Yeah, I had App State last week. Got through that one. Not going to take them here. They've got the game in the Sun Belt is next week. App State and Coastal Carolina. That's going to be the biggest game they've had in a while.
Pretty amazing.
Sun Belt. That is a big game. And I don't know that, I don't know if we'll see Appy State at its best tomorrow. They'll win. They're not, they're going to beat Georgia State, but I think the margin particularly matters to them. And they weren't great last week against Texas State. I got through there with a win. They won by 21, but it was not the sharpest Appy State performance I've ever seen. They took some really bad penalties in the game and a little bit sloppy. So, and then, their focus wasn't really there. They were just playing a bad team and managed to do enough to destroy them. But that could be the case against Georgia State. Just let's get through it and get to that big game next week.
I jumped into the slate this week without even mentioning the Big Ten game that was played tonight. If you had told me before the season that Iowa would be fine, in fact, they'd be good after all the bullshit of the summer, with all the stuff with one of the coaches he kept on the staff being abusive, racial claims, all of that. And by the way, I'm not saying any of it's not true, but the fact that they would sail into the season and play well, and then row your boat guy is getting his freaking teeth kicked in. 35-7, Iowa beats Minnesota.
Statistically, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was bad. And I don't know what's wrong with Minnesota. I wasn't involved in the game. And I still don't know what to make of this Iowa team because I don't like the quarterback that much. And I still think there could be some issues there. But maybe Minnesota just overachieved for a couple of years. Maybe this is what they are.
All right. Well, Gopher fans ain't going to be happy about that. UNLV's not here, but we have college football in town. It's a weird deal. We're becoming a hub as long as we can sort of stay safe, I guess, for wayward teams from New Mexico. New Mexico is working out here week to week. Now they're playing here in a pseudo home game. Reno comes south for a second game in Las Vegas, and we have a bunch of people who are real curious about it. I think New Mexico can score. I'm surprised they're not a little better defensively with Rocky Long back. I guess my worry here would be that I think Reno is going to give up some points. So can they cover 17 against New Mexico?
Yeah, I think they might be able to because Strong is getting more and more confident. And he's turning into a heck of a quarterback. And they play fast. They play up-tempo. And New Mexico just doesn't have a lot of bodies on defense right now. I think they're an improved team already. But Bob Davie did so much damage there. It's going to take a couple of years to get them to a respectable Mountain West level. I think they will with this coach. He's very well regarded.
They're competing.
Yep.
Danny Gonzalez has, and considering the circumstances,
yes,
this is not easy. Cruiser, elaborate in a comment or two. How locked down are you guys? I saw the governor speaking today, but I didn't get to read the update. Like how locked down now is New Mexico? And the other part of my comment earlier about Vegas is home for wayward New Mexico teams. I didn't see. Was there any final news yet? I know there's speculation out there about New Mexico State basketball moving operations, college football or college basketball team, right? Operations moving to either Tucson, Phoenix, or Vegas. So we'll have to see what happens. And if New Mexico State is working here in Vegas, believe it or not, Donnie Tillman will be back in Vegas because he's now with New Mexico State in his, ninth year and third program. So that'd be interesting.
That is funny.
Yeah. Didn't expect that one. Other Mountain West Conference games. Let's mention the Rebels. This number keeps going up and up and up. They're going to lose by 17, 21 points or 0-3 against the spread. They've had the last two games, and obviously the second half of the San Diego State game, they've had their moments. They were within hailing distance of Fresno State, and then all of a sudden, Max Gillum was so run-happy that he lost his focus on the pass and was throwing interceptions. How good is San Jose State? Are they going to blow out the Rebels?
San Jose State's playing good football. And we've mentioned this before. Brennan is doing an incredible job there. That's a guy who might be moving up the coaching ladder. They're going to have a tough time keeping him because he's not that old. He's like, early 50s? So he's got that. He's not ancient. He's not one of these guys who's, on his last legs as a coach, not the type you want to hire to build a program, a higher level program. I think he's going to get calls, and he might get him in the Pac-12. I mean, what he's done at San Jose is super impressive. And the thing is, they like to throw, and so if they keep on throwing the football, I don't know if UNLV can stay with him. But I'll say this: the Rebels are fighting hard. We haven't seen any give up in the team, which I really like. Even the San Diego State game, they could have packed it in at halftime because they were getting destroyed. And even in the Reno game, they didn't give up. And last week, they almost covered. Again, a bad mistake by Gillum, but they're fighting. And that's what you want to see out of a team that's not that good. It's a good sign for the future, at least. You got to get better players, though.
Yeah, Cruiser in New Mexico said nothing allowed, shelter in place, no more than 75 people in any grocery store, big box store. Casinos got shut down. I guess our app's not up in New Mexico. They don't have apps yet, betting apps, so they're cooked on the betting, so that sucks. I don't want that. I hope we don't get that, but who the fuck knows at this point. What about Hawaii and San Diego State? Hawaii's play has been a bit uneven.
Yep.
Cordero was unreal last week, was just dynamite. They're getting 10 against the Aztecs, and the Aztecs obviously coming off a very disappointing loss against the aforementioned Spartans of San Jose State.
I can't lay it with San Diego State at this point. And this is one of those, this is one of those you can't go home again. Sometimes you can with Schiano, and sometimes you can't with Brady Hoke. I'm not sure this is going to work out. And they just don't have you would think that at some point, and I'll even put this on Rocky Long, who had a great reputation as a defensive coordinator and defensive coach, and he is. He's a great defensive coach, but never able to recruit a quarterback. How's that possible at San Diego State?
Yep.
Look, I understand that at some of the other Mountain West locales, if you're a great quarterback, do you really want to play in Colorado State or Wyoming where it's 8 degrees on a nice day in November? But San Diego,
Dave, how about the next level? If you can't get guys to come as freshmen, you're not one of the first candidates to get Pac-12 exits. The Pac-12. Most programs in the Pac-12 have 2 or 3 guys. Most programs do in general, but there's always going to be a California kid looking to come back home if he leaves the Pac-12 or he goes to the Pac-12. How do you not go to San Diego State?
Well, and here's the irony, of course, is Jack Sears was going to San Diego State. Jack Sears is the backup, but he's a 1A at Boise State. And then Rocky Long decided he didn't want to coach anymore, and I guess Jack Sears decided he didn't want to stay there.
Well, let's let's correct this. Did Rocky Long decide he didn't want to be a head coach? What happened with Rocky Long? That seemed real fishy to me. You just think he wanted out for being a head coach?
I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's the only thing I can. It's more responsibility, and what he really likes is defense. That's what Rocky Long likes. He likes to coach defense. I have
a feeling, Dave, that he asked for more money. I don't think he's like the type of guy who's going to be super greedy, but I think he started looking around and he's like, wait, this Adazio guy comes off a 500 record at Boston College. He's getting $1.5 million. Arroyo hasn't been a head coach. He's getting $1.5 million. And Rocky Long's like, I'm making $800. Can you give me a little boost? And I think San Diego State was like, hey, we're budget restricted. Take it or leave it. All right, I'll leave it.
You might be right. I hadn't even really factored that in.
You know what? It may just. It seems weird to me that Rocky Long's like, hey, I want out, and then he's like, no, but I want back in. I still want to coach football, but because he wasn't. I never got the sense that he's a CEO when he was a head coach. I think he was a CEO coach, and he was probably interested more in the defense than the offense. But I don't know. I mean, coaching is coaching.
To me, San Diego State should be the power in the Mountain West in both major sports. They are in basketball.
Well,
Well,
they got a fighting chance. I mean, they've been a really good program. Obviously, this new stadium in a couple of years is going to be a big boost for them. And they're not playing in a cavernous NFL stadium. They're going to be in a perfect size, 35.
Well, now they're in what? They're playing in Carson now, right?
Yeah. So that's going to be this year and next year. And then they've got an expandable football stadium. It's going to be about 35,000 right there in Mission Valley, kind of do stuff with the property, make it multidimensional. It's going to be cool.
Yeah. And there shouldn't be any excuses. They really should be the excuse me, the power team in the Mountain West. It's San Diego, for crying out loud. I mean, they're by far the major. Is there any market close to them in the Mountain West? San Diego is one of the biggest markets in the country. I don't care what conference you're in.
Oh no.
I mean, you got to do better than they've done. They should be winning this conference every year, and that includes Boise.
They've done well. I think they could reach another level. The original point was they shouldn't have to be a run 70% of the time program, and maybe that pushed quarterbacks away. They see all these Mountain West Conference programs, and especially Pac-12 programs whipping it around the field. I'll say this: I don't know how many times San Diego State was on some of the other quarterbacks in the Mountain West Conference. There have been some ridiculous stories out of California, and it's not necessarily Southern California, but there's been some crazy under-recruited quarterbacks who've come out of California. Like, how did San Diego State, not get in on, I don't know, you name it. Carson Strong's a California guy. He's from Northern California, but how does he land at Reno? How does Josh Allen land at friggin' Wyoming?
How's the kid at San Jose State who's been to a couple of schools? And
Starkle.
I mean, you don't go after him?
Yeah.
He's good at this level. He's not an SEC level starting quarterback. All right, so he's not there anymore. But he's arguably as good as anybody in this conference.
Yeah. I'll say though, it must be nice. We could sit here and get on them for being an 8, 9, 10 win program.
I know, but I don't know if they're going to be now.
Yeah.
They look like, and again, that could change in a couple of years when they get the new stadium, but they look like they're, kind of stepping down the ladder right now.
Right.
Anyway, the bottom line is I'm not laying that many points with San Diego State because they just have no explosiveness, and Hawaii might give them a good game.
Last one we'll get to, unless someone else has a question on college football. Where was my last game there? Mountain West Conference. Oh, Fresno and Utah State. Well, that was weird, huh? Fresno State, Gary Anderson puffing out his chest. He's like, no opt-outs this year. If you're not with us, then you're out of here. Okay, well, you're out of here, so he's gone. So now you got an interim in place.
Can't get worse.
I mean, I think Fresno I thought Fresno was a mixed bag last week. I don't love their quarterback play.
No.
And apparently their head coach, Kalen DeBoer, didn't love Jake Haener at certain points in the game. I thought the backup was terrible. He looked like he was hobbled too. But they do have one of the best running backs in the league, and last week he was like 250 yards total offense. So can they go on the road to Utah State, hobbled Utah State, win by 10 or more?
I don't know. I think Utah State might be really excited about the fact that they got Anderson out of there.
Right.
Let's just say that wasn't working out very well. And that was a bad hire by them, a really bad hire. And
go back home.
Yeah. Well, and in his case, it's not like he had extraordinary success there the first time around.
Right.
He was a 500 coach. I mean, at least Hoke had some really good years at San Diego State. So, okay. But Anderson didn't. I never figured out. I guess this is going to be one of the mysteries of my lifetime. I've never figured out why he was such a sought after head coach. I don't know how he got the Wisconsin job in the first place. I'm not knocking the guy, but I just never saw anything in his resume that said, wow, we got to go out and get this guy. He's going to be a superstar. And they were just horrendous 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see if they play with a little more energy tomorrow. But I agree on Fresno. I don't think Fresno's they're middle of the road, Mountain West at best.
I think Brady's busting your chops, but do you care about Eastern Kentucky, Central Arkansas?
I don't know anything about FCS teams.
All right, Brady. We'll have to get someone else on to cover FCS for us. Let's hit
mid-major Matt.
Mid-major Matt's pretty good.
He's really good on small colleges.
Let's do some NFL, and then I got a couple of points to close on.
Right.
Cincinnati, Pittsburgh.
I want to talk about the Broncos game because I like that game.
Let's do it. Do it.
So then that's the game, obviously the big game here.
Woo! 3.5. There's 3.5s now. 4 and
Is
3.5.
it down that much? Ooh, I got 4.5. I got 5 actually.
3.5 at Superbook USA.
Cool. This is a tough spot for the Raiders. If they come through here, then they're better than we thought they were.
Man, Vegas is going to be unlike any other, except for the Knights, because I don't know that people know hockey here. They're fans of the Knights, not hockey. Vegas is going to be a really unique hometown betting market because there is no guarantee that you're going to get Philly, the Jets, and the Giants. You're always going to get some fucked up skewed line. Same thing with the Bears, from what I hear so far in Illinois. Man, people here, it's a transient town. They don't care that Vegas is the hometown team. They bet with their head and not their heart. 3.5. People are firing money on Drew Lock, but you said you got it at 5.
No, and look, I think the Raiders are marginally better than the Broncos.
Yeah.
But boy, I mean, you got to factor in scheduling dynamics. And this is a sandwich.
Yep.
The Raiders, they're coming off a crazy win against the Chargers. They're the Sunday night home team against the Chiefs next week. It doesn't mean they can't play well here, but this, especially for a younger team, this is the kind of spot where it's like, oh boy, they might overlook this one.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where it's an intentional overlook. They're just not quite as focused, and they're excited about what just happened, and they've got the game of the year next week. Chiefs at Raiders. That's a huge game. And the Broncos they're 3-5, but they're a whisker away from being 5-3.
Yep. So
they're not that bad a football team. I make the Raiders a couple of points better, but that's it. And with the scheduling, I think it's a toss-up. So to me, if you're getting more than a field goal, you've got you're getting slightly the best of it, at least with the Broncos. I think it's going to be I think it'll be a good game.
I agree. Tough spot. Definitely a tough spot. Pittsburgh, iffy with Big Ben. Nothing was announced today, right? But he should be back.
But Tomlin says he expects him to play.
Okay. So now it's starting to bump back up a little bit. It's at 7.5. There's an 8 out there. What do you think? How good are the Steelers? I mean, I know it sounds crazy because they're unbeaten, but they're good. Last week, just a dead spot against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think so. It's tough not to be. It's tough to get excited for the Cowboys. And Dallas played probably its best game of the season. It was one other game they played well early in the season, but they're not very good. Especially without Dez, they're terrible. Dax, whatever.
Dak,
yeah, Dak.
when they had Dak, Zeke, and they still have him. When they had Dak, Zeke, and Dez, I was like, what's going on here? Getting all discombobulated.
As far as this game goes, let me get I have some little notes here on the Pittsburgh game. Are they as good as their record?
Yeah.
No, but they're close to it. They are one of the best teams in the league. I think that's, at this point, you just can't say they're not. And whether you I know this Tomlin still got his detractors out there.
Come on.
I don't know why.
Come on.
I don't know why. Guy's a great coach.
That's ridiculous.
He's a tremendous coach. And Pittsburgh it's a divisional game. They always seem to get up for those. I think the Bengals are battling hard. But I don't know if they got enough to stay with the Steelers for 4 quarters, especially if Roethlisberger's in the field. But the line's going to get up to a point where it's hazardous to lay it. I think the right number of the game is probably 10.5, assuming all hands are on deck for the Steelers.
Right.
It's probably going to end up right around there anyway.
All right. Buccaneers. I mean, just worst game of the year. It was terrible. So great spot for them here. They're going to be all fired up. Carolina. Is this overdoing the whole mental thing? I would have to think the Panthers like, fuck, man, we waited and fought all this time to get McCaffrey back, and now he's out again. So now you've got Tampa holding at a couple of spots at 5.5, but some 6s popping up.
Yeah, but Carolina doesn't seem to care. They're really battling hard, and I don't know that they're going to just get rolled over because Tampa had a bad game last week and wants to play well here. I'm sure they do, but I've kind of learned to not go against the covering machine whose name is Teddy Bridgewater. This guy's just a monster against the spread. He might be the most underrated quarterback in the league. because he never gets mentioned, and he's not one of the elite superstars, but he's really good, and he knows how to manage a game. I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa's going to be a huge public side here, and I think this game might be a real close game.
All right. What do you make of? I mean, this just shows how the public's going to look at things one way, and power ratings don't shift that much throughout a season unless there's just something super positive or super dreadful.
Right.
Chargers are still plus 1.5 on the road against Miami. I mean, this seems to me one of those cases where like Sharps would still be playing the Chargers.
Yep.
To your knowledge, so they haven't bailed, right?
Nope.
And that's why this number is what it is. So what do you do with this? I'm
not going to play it in all likelihood because the Chargers are supposed to beat. They're supposed to beat the Dolphins. They're better than the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Statistically, it's a mismatch. But at what point do you just accept the fact the Chargers are probably not a very well-coached team, and there is nobody worse at the end of the game than the Chargers are?
Yep.
And at some point, that's got to start to mentally. I think it already is getting to the mentally. They should have won that game last week.
Yep.
I wasn't on them, so it didn't matter to me. It's not sour grapes, but they should have won the football game, and they didn't. And they've had that 3 or 4 times already this year. At some point, you worry about the mindset getting negative and almost the expectation that there's going to be something bad is going to happen. Murphy's Law is going to rear its ugly head again with this team at the end of the game. And the Dolphins, for as badly as they've been completely overwhelmed on the stat sheet these last 2 games, they still won them both. I know the Chargers are supposed to beat them. I'm not sure they will.
Here's your Panthers number 2 with Teddy Bridgewater. He's 22-5 ATS in his career as a dog, and 5-2 last 7 games ATS. So pretty good.
Not bad, huh?
Yep, pretty good.
And I think the team really looks up to him too. I think what he's done in terms of this comeback from a horrible injury. I think he's got those leadership skills that a lot of teams would die for in a quarterback.
Josh Allen, one of those guys. He goes on the road, big spot here. They're getting 2.5. Zona, favored against the Bills.
Well, not that Arizona's a great defensive team, but they're better than Seattle. Seattle can't stop anything. And so it'll be a little tougher for them. But Arizona's another team. Got to find a way not to lose games. And that might be the Kingsbury, who a lot of people don't think is equipped to be a head coach in the NFL. And they've already had 2 games this year that they were absolutely blew the games late. And it gets to be a habit sometimes. That's all I can say. I think the Bills know how to win, and the other team doesn't. So Arizona might be better than the Bills, but that doesn't necessarily mean they win.
Right. How much of the Monday Night Football game did you watch with New England and the Jets? And I wonder what you thought of the Patriots' performance and the way they had to move the ball down the field as they're getting 7 at home against the Ravens.
I think it's going to go up. Because I'm not seeing. I know the public's going to be all over Baltimore in this game.
Yeah,
I mean the ticket percentage of this game, I think it's going to be 90%, because the Patriots impressed absolutely nobody on Monday. But I'm not seeing where there might be a rush to buy back, because I don't know what the resistance number is. It might be 8 or 9. Maybe then at some point, well, you get more than a touchdown at home, and the numbers guys start to dig in and take the Ravens. The downside is there a chemistry issue on the Ravens now, with Lamar Jackson popping off about the offensive coordinator? Hey, Lamar, throw a pass where it's supposed to go. Hey, he can't pass from the pocket. And Belichick, look, he's smart enough defensively to, okay, well, we're going to keep him in the pocket. We're going to try and continue. He's going to get some yards, but we're going to make him throw. And if you can do that, got a chance. I'd still take the Ravens, though. The Patriots stink.
God damn, though. The tickets, like you said, the cash is 93% on the Ravens, and the tickets are 94%. That's almost an automatic play for me the other way. But
same here, but I can't do it.
Watching Cam Newton have to work his way down the field by basically just throwing screen passes and freaking short 7-yard slants. And I mean, it looks like they found a decent weapon. We'll see if this guy, Jacoby Myers, whatever his name is, can keep it going. But boy, that was weird.
Did you think the Jets kind of didn't mind losing that game? Because I did. You don't run what they ran in the fourth quarter.
Dave, it was totally. To win. I crowed about it. I crowed about it on Monday. No, that was Adam Gase was brilliant. Come on, they threw a deep ball into double coverage that got easily intercepted, and then the 3 and out was ridiculous. I swear that
they could have taken 3 knees.
Yeah, on second down,
could have taken 3 knees.
On second down, I swear, Joe Flacco dropped back and he did this. He looked out. He's like, "Is the guy coming for me to get the sack?" And then he just dropped back in like 2 steps and just whipped the ball 10 yards past the receiver as to not get intercepted on third down. They ran 4 plays in the fourth quarter. Yeah, of course they were tanking.
Yeah. So you can't even give the Patriots credit for. I mean, they should have lost the game. The Jets were a better team. And
the Jets never adjusted because I don't really think they wanted to win the game. The only thing, Cam and the Patriots figured out that, hey, the Jets were going to blitz over and over again. It was like the second highest blitz rate Cam Newton's ever faced. The Jets blitzed on 70% of the plays. At some point, the blitz becomes ineffective. If all you have to do is, keep an extra guy in and then just dump off somewhere. And that's why Cam was 27 to 35. He knew he's facing the blitz and it's a check down and you get 8 yards every, they didn't get 8 yards every play, but you get my point. It was kind of predictable.
Pretty close. It's sometimes there's nothing the odds makers can do. I got a feeling the public's going to cash their tickets on this game.
All right. Last one in the NFL, at least said I want to hit. Boy, I really am too much of a fan of Little Shanny, Kyle Shanahan. But this number does seem big, doesn't it? 9.5? Niners are 9.5 against New Orleans? They're getting 9.5?
Yeah, New Orleans is coming off a great game.
San Fran got freaking slaughtered a
God,
couple
they've
Thursdays
got
ago.
so many people out. I think the year's lost for San Francisco at this point. They're not going to mail it in because it's a well-coached team and the players are still trying. But, God, they've got so many injuries. And New Orleans convinced a lot of people last week.
Yeah.
Where did I make that number? I made it 9.5. It's right on the number.
Okay. All right.
I am interested to see what happens on Monday with the new play caller for the Chicago Bears. The offensive coordinator is now actually going to call the offense.
Matt Nagy's finally like, I got to try something new.
Why not?
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting matchup. I'm probably going to look at the Bears in that game as home dogs. I'm not buying that the Vikings have. And by the way, and I'm not. Believe me, I'm not. I've said this. I'm not a trend guy, but Kirk Cousins' record in Monday Night Football is 0-9 straight up against the spread.
Yeah, he's not good. He's never been a good primetime guy.
No, and if the Bears are good at shutting down the run, and if you can control Cook, you're not going to stop him completely. I mean, it's not like Cook's going to get held to 2 yards a carry, but if you can control Cook and make somebody else beat you, I'm not sure the Vikings have anybody who can do that. Cook has been amazing this year. I know running backs don't get MVP consideration anymore because it's their running backs. Just plug in another one, but Cook's been incredible for this team.
So, Dave, we mentioned earlier one sports passing, and that was Paul Hornung, former NFL player. Tommy Heinsohn passed away.
Yeah.
What's your memory of Heinsohn? Because I was like the guy. I mean, gruff dude, loved the Celtics. Big time homer, big time homer. But man, he was crazy on the games. He would go ballistic on the referees.
Yes, he did,
and ballistic on the opposition.
Yep. 2 Heinsohn recollections. One was when I was a little kid. I don't know. I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and the Celtics used to have 3 home courts because Boston was the main home court, but they also played a few games each year in Providence and in Hartford.
Okay.
So we went to we used to go to the games when they played in Providence.
Yeah.
We got free tickets for everything. at Rhode Island Auditorium because my uncle ran the box office. So we'd get the best seats, and they didn't cost anything. So yeah, that's a good connection. So at one of these games, Heinsohn, this is during the game, like halftime. Okay, things have changed. Heinsohn comes out during halftime to put on a free throw shooting clinic. So all the kids, including myself, can go out on the floor and watch him. He's going to teach us how to shoot free throws. And what I remember is that he took 3 free throws and he missed 2 of them.
That's awesome.
The other was a flight to Cleveland. I happened to be on the same flight as apparently the Celtics were on. Maybe not all the Celtics, but the executive portion of the announcers. Johnny Most and Heinsohn was sitting right behind me. I don't remember much about Heinsohn on that flight. It was a short flight, though, but Johnny Most smoked the entire flight. He chain smoked the entire flight. And that's my remembrances of Tommy Heinsohn.
So your voice is the fault of Johnny Most, basically. That was your idol. You're like, oh, I want to sound like that.
Oh, he was great. There was nobody like Johnny Most. I mean, the ultimate. He was the most. There's never been a bigger homer in the history of sports.
I was going to say. He's always down the middle. Always down the middle.
Oh, and the nicknames he would come up with for the opposition.
Yeah.
He didn't like Jeff Rulin and Rick Mahorn, and he came up with the name McFilthy and McNasty.
Yeah, they were too.
And he would just call him that. And you knew which, I forget which one was which, but you knew which one had the ball. Like, McFilthy over to McNasty, you know.
I don't have any knowledge of the Rhode Island Auditorium, so I looked it up. It was actually kind of a small arena, right? It says here it held 5,300.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah,
it was a hellhole for opposing teams in the American Hockey League because they had They finally put plexiglass in like just before the arena closed and they moved downtown.
Right.
But it used to be chicken wire, and
what?
They had chicken wire, and it was.
Who's that worse for? Is that worse for the fans with the puck coming through it, or is it worse for the players as they get their face rubbed against chicken wire?
Well, both, and it was even worse for the players because fans in the front row would grab the no. They grabbed through the chicken wire and grabbed the guy by the uniform so he couldn't get away.
Oh my God! Yeah, I was reading concert history there. The Who actually played there in '68. Hendrix in '69.
Had some great. All the big bands came through.
Do you remember this one? And again, that's
where I saw Ali Frazier, by the way. The first Ali Frazier fight I saw it on closed circuit there. It was the first time we'd ever seen closed circuit. It was brand new.
How big was the crowd?
Oh, it was a lot of people.
Really?
They didn't have any real seats. Okay, everybody was just walking around on the floor and watched because they only had one screen.
Right.
And it wasn't that big, so everybody was at one end of the arena watching the fight. I was not happy that night either.
Why not? You bet Frazier?
Because I was rooting for Ali.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. You said that was the first one?
That was, I believe, the first close. Well, it was the first close circuit fight I ever saw.
I meant their first fight against each other.
Oh yeah, that was one. Yeah. Yeah, I saw tons of great events there, and I worked there too for many years. So I practically lived in that place. When I was supposed to be in school, I was usually there.
1969. It says a concert by Sly and the Family Stone was followed by a riot. Do you remember that? The mayor got all pissed off and he banned all concerts in Providence for like 2 months.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that was at a time where things were not going well.
Yeah, 69.
Okay. Yeah, that was also the year where my high school ended up closing for the year in March because we had a race riot.
Really?
Oh yeah, we made national. We were the lead story on Walter Cronkite.
What was your high school?
Hope High School.
All right, I got to read up on that.
And
what was the makeup of your school in terms of
about 50-50?
Really?
Yeah. And apparently the Black Panthers at that time were a pretty strong movement at Brown University, which is literally right down the street from Hope. I mean, it's walking distance. And they apparently called a meeting with the black kids in school, and then all hell broke loose. And when school finally opened the next year, there was a contingent of fathers of a particular ethnic descent from Europe, and because we have a lot of Italian Americans in Providence, and they were literally lined up at the school with weapons. It's like, you cause any problems here, and we're prepared for you this time. The city had that city had a lot of problems back then, which kind of sucked, because the weird thing is, we'd all gone to school together for a lot of years, going back to elementary school. So it was weird. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I had a lot of friends that were, I didn't care, black, white, it didn't matter. And all of a sudden, we weren't friends anymore. It's just the way, and I can't, I'm not going to bullshit and say we remained best friends, because we didn't. It was not a good time. I'm not saying that with pride. It's just the way it was. There was a deep division,
right,
of the races at that point, where you were on one side or the other.
Yep,
that's just the way it was.
Well, the shit had hit the fan by the late '60s with African Americans. They'd fucking had enough, and a lot of young people had enough. So the peaceful stuff didn't work. So it was time to hit the streets, start cracking some heads, fight back.
The interesting thing is, we got bonded back together again because of Vietnam.
Yeah,
and so the race stuff went out the window. And I'm not going to use the expression, but it's like somebody I don't remember who it was. It might have been George Carlin who came up with the expression. It was Nixon's you-know-whats. We're all Nixon's you-know-whats.
Yep.
Began with an N, okay?
Yeah.
And kind of was, yeah, he's right. And the healing began at that point.
That's interesting. You brought up Carlin. It actually just made me think of Dave Chappelle. I watched Chappelle and Dave Letterman sit down for like 55 minutes.
Oh, Chappelle's a genius.
You should watch it. I mean, it really, just like
I've seen it.
Just like Carlin, just like Carlin was a voice of his time, Chappelle is. I mean, I think he's probably next level Carlin, but he's a fascinating guy to watch, because in that interview he's pretty reserved, and like he even said it, like Letterman's like, "Hey, do you want to be a leader?" And he's like, you know what, I just got to deal with my stuff. But you can see it brews inside of Chappelle, and when it comes out, like it's there's a lot of anger, but it's also like he's just brilliant in the way he explains it. Like I don't know how someone could listen to Chappelle the way he deals with things logically and go, well, fuck that guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like,
Well, I know somebody who knows him pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't know him. I've never met the man, but a friend of mine does know him pretty well, and he will tell you that Chappelle's the smartest guy he's ever met.
Yep. And
just super intelligent guy.
And to me, like a lot of Letterman's thing here is now he's sitting down with like the highest achievers in the entertainment world and otherwise. Like when Letterman in more than a few times was just in awe of Chappelle. Just like and he was just effusive at the end. Everyone's got to go watch it. It's really fascinating, and he's a neat guy. And then Chappelle saying like, hey, the weed that he does smoke, like he must have said 6, 8, 10 times. He's like what we do is really hard. Like I'm inside my head all the time. And it's like, why are you inside your head? You're fucking brilliant. You're almost universally accepted. But there's still doubt. Like he's always on that edge. Like, I gotta fucking achieve. I gotta be funny.
Did you watch the docu series on was it Showtime? From the Comedy Store?
Yep, I've been
that was fantastic.
I've been raving about it, and Adam, who was a big comedy guy, watched it. But like I'm familiar with most of those comedians, but I didn't know the dynamics of the Comedy Store. I didn't know everyone who had played there. I'll tell you, I don't know what they're doing. Like I figure whoever's got the Johnny Carson estate is going to cash in at some point. Like I feel that show should be available everywhere. And it's like that should be on a Netflix or a Hulu for, I don't know what the rights would be on it, but that whole storyline in the 70s of like the Comedy Store being the AAA for Carson, and then just how fucking big it was to get on Carson.
Well, not only that, but obviously I wasn't a comedian, but a lot of us who were, I mean, when there was going to be a new comic on,
yeah,
okay, let's see how this guy does, and you could tell right away by Carson's reaction whether this guy's going to be a star, or it's like, he's the middle of the road, or that's it.
He's like, hey, what?
Carson would give it one of those, good job, like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, forget about him. But if Carson was excited, oh boy.
Oh, and if he called you over to sit down for another 4 minutes, well, I know Adam is a younger guy, and it's not like I'm so old that I watch Chico and the Man live. But I like one of the best things in that whole special is Freddie Prinze.
Yeah.
And like I didn't realize like what a megastar he was at like 18, 19 years old. It was incredible.
He was the biggest in the business.
Crazy.
Which, I guess, you know what? That's the downside is if it happens too young, too soon, I guess it really screwed him up.
I loved it.
Obviously, if he killed himself, it screwed him up.
I didn't love that part, but I love the other thing because there were probably 10 different comics that I'd never heard of who've been playing there for like 25 years, who are sort of house comedians. Yeah. They're really good, and the big name comedians that we know of like really respect the people who go there. The guys who go there every night and play and have been good.
Yeah, it's a 4-part series, so it's not one of these things where you got to, you can actually binge watch this in one night, and still have some time left over to do something. But I would really recommend it if you like comedy. It's really good. You got
to hear the comedians talk about each other too, like the reverence they have for each other. Like, the most recent recollection of Leno and Letterman is them kind of going at it. They're both making whatever $25 to $40 million doing these rival shows, but they have great respect for each other. And then the way people talked about Leno in the 70s, and then seeing Letterman do stand up, seeing Michael Keaton do stand up.
Yeah,
and that Keaton went from doing stand up to being this mega movie star. That was freaking really cool.
Leno is, I think of all of them, the veterans, I think Leno is the one they look at and say he's just the funniest guy out there.
Yeah.
Just everything he says is funny if he wants it to be funny.
And then you hear about like how they all operate differently. Some people, well, a lot of them are alcoholics and drug addicts. Some are writing all the time. Leno's like, I don't write anything down. It's all here.
Yep.
You're like, wait, you keep everything up here. That's nuts.
I would find out that Jimmy Walker, who had a really good run for a lot of years, he had writers.
Yeah.
Anyway, he wasn't ashamed to say it. I mean, he was paying guys to write for him. I thought that was pretty cool. And Jimmy Walker had a hell of a run. And I saw Jimmy perform, and he was good. He was a good stand-up comic. I saw him at the Trop, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And actually, we knew each other then, because Jimmy was at that time. I don't know if you remember me or not, but Jimmy used to like to bet Canadian football.
Oh yeah,
he loved betting. He actually studied it. He thought there was an edge in the CFL. He says, "You guys go bet the NFL. Everybody's betting that." So he's making his own numbers and following the CFL, and he was winning at it too. And it was like, in fact, was in the Stardust contest one year. He got invited, and I think he picked like 5 Canadian Football League games, and I think he did well with them. It was like, Jesus, pretty sharp guy. Because if you can isolate on a sport that people aren't following that closely, you can do well. KBO has been a godsend for me this summer. I've done really well with the KBO, and I have every intention of staying with the KBO next year, even if Major League Baseball is back from day one.
That's awesome. Mark, a couple of minutes ago, was asking a random question. Would Sanchez have done any better than Arroyo thus far? Maybe. They might have one win.
Does it matter?
Not really, because I don't think Sanchez was ever going to build things the right way on defense. I think they would have. I think they could have competed a little better with Reno, but the problem is what Arroyo's dealing with. His big issue is on the back end. Sanchez was going to have to deal with the same exact thing. And Sanchez, because what happened and I'm talking about defensive backs and safeties. What happened with Sanchez is that he got to a point where it's like, hey, you got to win, right? It's year 4 and 5, and he hadn't shored up the defensive backfield. Obviously, I hope everyone picks up on the fact that Arroyo is like, okay, we're going to go rock bottom with the defensive backs. We're playing all fucking freshmen, so there's going to be growing pains. Now, I will say, I still believe that the offense could have been better this year if Oblad was playing. But if Arroyo doesn't believe Oblad can run his stuff, then Oblad's not going to play. But
I think Oblad probably should transfer out.
He probably should. He probably should. If they don't believe in him,
he's not going to play here.
It's kind of a loaded question. It's they're in completely different situations. Arroyo obviously can clear the decks, build the team he wants to, and he's going to play a lot of young guys the first 2 years.
Bobby, how I thought had the right mindset for the job, which was we are never going to get the real big speed guys and the real big physical guys. And what his job was to build guys up physically so that by their senior year, they'd have a good team. I mean, that might not be an approach people like, but his mindset was if we can get to a bowl game once every 4 years, that's as good as it's going to get here. Now, I think that might change now because the city's changed. And they're going in, they're going to be in this Allegiant, and the city's got an NFL team, and it's more of a big league city now. So I think maybe the goal has to be higher than that. But I always thought Bobby had kind of the right approach as far as that goes, as far as what the ceiling was for UNLV football. Tony was great at fundraising. He was tremendous. He had great connections, but I didn't think that none of his teams were getting better. And I thought physically they were just consistently being outmanned. And that tied into what Bobby was saying, in that you got to have to take your lumps with the young teams, but keep them out there and build them up physically so they're much bigger and stronger by the time they're upperclassmen. And then you can go out there and maybe get a winning season. So I always agree with that. We'll see what happens here, but I think that's kind of the approach that Arroyo's going to have to take, because physically they are getting outmanned. They're just not strong enough.
But I think I think that Houck was shooting too low. To me, the model is the school in the same state, Dave, produces high level. Reno produces high level Mountain West players. They make bowl games. They produce NFL players. And they a big part of it is.
But they have more of it. Chris Ault is a legend.
Well, they have they have more success to build on. They don't have more support from a money standpoint. Now the facilities are much better here, but I think what Reno has done is they have just scouted personnel better. The two best guys on offense this year, we talked about Carson Strong. He almost had no offers. This guy Romeo Dubs, their wide receiver, who's 6'2" and like 210. He's awesome. He's an LA kid. And he hardly got any offers. That's just talent evaluation. That's just digging and finding guys. And Reno has just done it better. No
question.
I thought Sanchez recruited offense in a solid way. He just was not good at recruiting defense. And I think Arroyo is going to be pretty solid at that. But they are going to take their lumps for a little bit here, and we'll see. But to me, there's no reason that this program, now with the stadium, now with that football facility, can't consistently be in the 6 or 7 win range. I'm not asking for conference championships, but they need to get better. So
I 100% agree with that. And hopefully he's the right guy, and he sticks around for a while.
Thanks to this thing, Wedo, I think. So thanks for sticking in. This
thing we do.
Oh, there you go. Oh my God, nice job, Dave. We do. That was an Inks moment for me. This thing we do, Wedo. I said Wedo.
Inks. That's one of my. That's one of my classics.
Yep. You were doing a giveaway for tickets, and you're like, tickets to Inks. It's in excess, but it's all right. I just matched you on that one. This thing, Wedo. One last thing I want to mention. It's pretty clear we live amongst a lot of cunts. I'll use the language here. Man, this was a reaction to Sisolak announcing they had COVID. And you look at the comments, and a lot of them are bots, and a lot of them are gutless shits. But there were a lot of people up on the RJ comments on Twitter, when Sisolak said I have COVID, that they actually have their names on their accounts. I think they're functioning members of society, and they were just laughing, like, fuck masks, basically like, hope he doesn't recover. Like, man, we are at, Dave, when you were talking about 69 and how depressing it was, and, freaking race riots at your school, and eventually you guys came back together. These are nutty times when people are so goddamn vicious. They're like, oh, someone got COVID. Our governor got COVID. And Governor Sisolak has basically done, what he thinks is best. He's trying to balance what the casinos want, trying to keep our economy open, trying to keep the numbers low. And people are just so goddamn bitter. What a bunch of fucking creeps.
And they can't spell. Why is that? BS scared-tatic.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have typos, but it just seems to be an epidemic of them from, I don't know. I wouldn't want Sisolak's job. No, thank you. You couldn't pay me enough to do that job.
No, what's interesting is for all these governors, they had no idea that, especially recently elected governors, they had no idea this was coming. This is like, in some ways, it's a career. I don't know if it's a career ender, but it's a career stopper.
I think it's fair to say it.
None of them are getting reelected.
I think we saw proof of that. And look, I'm not taking sides in this, but if you don't, to me, I don't think there's any question that had there not been a virus, Donald Trump gets reelected, and probably easily.
Yep.
Easily, he would have won by. I think he would have won by a lot more than he did in 2016 because the economy was. I don't care whether you like him or not. The economy was booming. Whether you want to give him credit or give it to somebody, that's your own personal preference. But the economy was really good. Yep. People had money to spend. Las Vegas was fucking booming, man. I mean, this town was rolling. And I don't think there's any question that, regardless of what your opinion is as to how he handled it, it did cost him the election.
Yeah, by a narrow margin, but we've been saying it. I've been saying it for the the last 7-8 days, and he's going to get booted from the White House. But this was absolutely a victory for him. The fact that it was that close is a victory for him and his followers, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter. I think everybody knows that, but I'm also not stupid. This Trumpism isn't going away, and with what could take place in the next 2 years. Because I think there's going to be some fallout from this virus, and the economy could go in the other direction. The Trumpism could have a massive swing in their favor in 2022 in the midterms. Midterms usually favor the party that's not in the White House anyway. That's why when the Democrats made this huge to-do about winning, there was a blue wave in 2018, and it was kind of a blue wave. But it's like that always happens in the midterms. Okay, always. So I would, if you're wearing red, I wouldn't be too overly disappointed about this result because 2022 is a good chance. It might very well be a red wave. That's just the way politics goes. And my political preferences have nothing to do with my political analysis. It's kind of like, I'm a Red Sox fan. But it doesn't matter when it comes to handicapping baseball. I'm not a fan of anybody. It's the same thing in politics. I've got my preferences, but it's never impacted me in terms of my analysis of what's going on. And be honest, I'm pretty good at it. I usually get it right. I wish I had the same percentage in sports, to be honest with you. I haven't missed too many on the political side over the years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the last weekend before Trump got elected in 2016, I was seeing, I'm seeing some stuff here that just looking at the market, this isn't stupid money. And it's like, this might be, I didn't say a Trump win, but I said, this is going to be closer than people think. Because all the pundits was, it's going to be a romp. And, we know what happened.
Yep. All right. Good week, guys. We appreciate it. Dave, thank you. I hope you win this weekend. I hope I win this weekend.
I do too.
I need some wins.
Last weekend was terrific. I wouldn't mind having a rerun of that. I lost on the weeknight and then swept the weekend. So maybe I can have